process as we proceed through here. We have a financial advisor. The financial advisor is the district's agent repayer, our expert, a third-party person that gives us recommendations, that helps us through this process. So we used Alan Dashing before. We'll stick with Alan. Has done a good job. We need bond counsel, and I'll show it in a minute. Whenever you're working with things like this, you got a lot of legal documents that come through that have to get approved. You don't want to make a mistake, especially when you're working with tax-free bonds and the IRS. So Cynthia Weed at K&L Gates will be our bond counsel. In business services, Holly, Lydia, and myself will be players, capital projects. Evan, Karen, Shelley Henderson also plays in that role too. So that's the team we've assembled. We then get a kind of a plan saying, okay, what are the steps, what's going to be required? Kind of as it's reflected on here. Actually, Piper Jaffray has a much more detailed one we get into, we agree to, but this kind of gives you the steps that we talked about. The next step, we prepare something called a preliminary official statement. And this is gathering data. We put this data together in public document, and once we get it, I'll let you see it. This is an old one, so it's about this thick. The first probably half of it is kind of interesting. It talks about what we're doing, and this is something that will eventually go out to the potential bond buyers. It talks about what we're selling, talks about the district, our finances, our rules, our regulations, talks about our community, because they want to make sure that if they buy bonds, we're going to be stable enough to repay those communities we support, and then it looks at some of our finances at the end. So we're putting this together now. You will get a copy, and I'll talk about it in a minute once we get it done. But it's just kind of interesting. The front part's kind of interesting reading. Who are the biggest employers in the region? That's kind of has that stuff. Who are the biggest taxpayers? So it kind of gives you a pretty good view of our support and our group out there. Piper Jaffray does take the lead in that. We give them a lot of input, so we update the data, but they will assemble everything and put it together. At the same time, we have our lawyers beginning to do a bond resolution. And that's what you will see, and it's, as you would expect, the legal document. Sandy just enjoys these legal documents, but it's done by the lawyers, and we're putting this together right now and beginning to review that. That's when she gets excited. She calls it.
Nothing makes me happier than O'Hara.
Hey, there's enough aware.
No, this page is official, I like that.
And I'll talk about this a little bit later. So the bond resolution, K&L Gates, our bond counsel, has that for action right now. They go out and they get input from other people to put that together. And I mean, everything from the Bank of New York, that were the people that monitor our bonds and defease them as they get paid off, to King County, to the participants. So they're getting reviews from a number of folks on that. Look at that March 17th, get that draft bond resolution, because you're going to see it the following week at the board meeting. So that's their target to get it to me. Then we finalize both the preliminary official statement and the bond purchase agreement. This is Piper Jaffray, and that'll be the agreement we have with our underwriter to sell the bonds and lays our contractual issues out with them. About the 21st, I want to get the board a briefing on the status of where we are, what it looks like right now, and hopefully a copy of the preliminary official statement so you can look at it and get a feel for what the bond is and what's happening with that. Now we'll take the lead on that. At the March 25th meeting, we'll present the resolution to you, and at that meeting, we will have the entire bond team there. So we will have Trevor there, Alan Dashin, our financial advisor, Cynthia Weed, our bond counsel. So if you have questions, that's a good time to ask them. So they'll be available. We'll present the resolution.
This is at the
the
meeting
board
or
meeting.
at a study session?
At the board meeting. This is right there in the board meeting. It'll just be a resolution on the agenda. A couple things I point out in the resolution that we started probably about 3 bond sales ago, I think. One thing we did was we delegated the authority to effect a bond sale to the superintendent. And in his absence, I kind of stand in for that. But the reason we did that in the past, we would try to schedule our bond sales on a Tuesday when there was a board meeting set up, and because as soon as they sell the bonds, they want someone in the district signing saying, okay, we're locked in. It's got to happen that same day. So if there was a market fluctuated, it was a bad day, we didn't want to sell today, it was a bad sale yesterday, let's postpone it. All of a sudden now we got to either wait for another board meeting Tuesday or call a special board meeting to approve it, and it got kind of cumbersome. So the federal government and the states came out and said, you can do this delegation of authority. And what it does is, in the resolution, it'll list a few things. First of all, it will say, you got to limit the amount that you're delegating. So, and this case, to be superintendent, up to $80 million worth of bonds you can sell. So the board still has control of that. The time limit to conduct a sale, it's not forever, 60, 90 days. I like to go with, some people go for a year, but I think that 90-day window, if you can't get a bond sale 90-day window, then maybe you ought to go back and let's look at it again and see what we're doing wrong. So about a 90-day window, that way we can look at the market also and say, what's a good time, when are interest rates favorable for us to sell the bonds, and we can work with our experts on that. And then you get what I think is really important, what I call a not to exceed interest rate. And when we sell the bonds to the investors, we also agree upon an interest rate that they will earn. So we kind of cap that interest rate, and we look to both our financial advisor and our underwriter to say, what's the market looking like right now? What are bonds selling for? Because they monitor sales across the country, not only the state of Washington, what are things going for. So we're looking right now at about a 5.5% total interest cost. And that's kind of the max. We'd say, don't sell it, we don't want to pay any more than that. So you limit, say here, you can approve this as long as you stay within these parameters. And that'll be listed inside the resolution that you would sign. We also have something in the resolution I want to talk about, and it's called the Credit Enhancement or Bond Guarantee Program. This was started by the state a number of years ago. And although we will get our own financial rating, where we stand for both Moody's and Standard & Poor's, when we sell bonds, we can also apply to be covered by the state's financial rating. So that'll be a backup to ours. The state will also sit there and say, these bonds will be guaranteed by our credit in the states. Should we default for any reason? Not gonna, but I mean, some of the smaller districts have some challenges with that. It goes to the investor saying, if that district fails, we as the state will step in and pay those bonds. So it's a guarantee, we do it. It was actually in the resolution you passed that we put out to the voters to say, hey, these bonds will be covered under the state guarantee program. The little process, we go through and apply for that, and they give us a certificate, and it looks good to the investors out there saying, I feel pretty comfortable because I got a solid district with a good financial rating, with the state backing it up, it looks like a pretty solid investment, I'm not gonna lose my investment. That would be in that resolution too, so if you read that, you'll see it in there. So, that gets the bond sale resolution approved. The next step, we're looking at about April 15th, we're setting up financial rating calls, and this is when we talked to both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Sometimes they want to meet face-to-face with us. Recently, they've been just talking over the phone and they're comfortable. We will get a packet together, and this is the last one that's kind of fancy, that actually Piper Jaffray produces that kind of has a lot that's in the preliminary official statement, indications about the district, talks about what we've got in the community. We sit there, Larry's been sitting in with us, district bond team along with Piper Jaffray will sit in a room, we'll have them on it, and we'll do usually one, and that's about an hour, and then about a half an hour later do the second one. So they'll go through with their questions, what's going on, what are they looking for. They'll look at what your community look like, you know, any growth in the community, new industry coming in, they like to see that. They look at our recent elections, and I'm proud to say, it just went off, I'm sorry. The elections, they'll look out and say, okay, and we'll say, hey, pretty high, like in the high 60s, that's good community support, that's good. What are you gonna do with the bonds? Evan gets questions sometimes about all the other bonds that you get, how are the projects coming, where do you stand on that expenditures when you get going? So, we'll have a number of questions we go around. One of the things they continually look at, and I'll put it out to you because you're gonna hear this a lot during your tenure, they look at our fund balance. The good thing is, we do have a fund balance policy in this board. So 130 that says we keep 3% of our expenditures minimum. They look at total fund balance, it's a little higher than that. But this state, districts have lower fund balances because of the way we're funded than a lot of other states. So they really look seriously at that. And they continue to look at us and say, we'd like your fund balance higher. Our response to them is, if you look at our fund balance, we've got a policy. If you look historically what we've got, it's kind of stable where we are. You don't see major fluctuations. We manage it well. So we're pretty stable, and you ought to keep our ratings right where we're at or higher. So we push to go up, they push to go down, so it's one of those things we go back and forth. So that'll be part of the whole conversation, and then we gotta wait a couple of weeks for them. They go back and analyze the numbers and see what they've got, and they come back and give us our bond rating. And just if it means anything, Moody's is an AA2 rating, and an AA1 rating, I'm sorry, and Standard & Poor's is an AA minus. They're just a little different, just about the same. But so that's the two ratings we get. We'd like to at least maintain those ratings. And
That's the highest you can get, or AA?
No, it's an
No, for us as a district.
Well, you know, there's other districts that are higher, like Washington's higher, Bellevue's higher.
Because they have
A
all
lot
the
of it looks,
businesses.
your assessed valuation.
Right.
They look out there and say, they look at the community support, what happens, they look and go, oh my God, look at you got Microsoft, Google, da, da, da,
But
da, else.
if there are two bond failures, they have a higher rating than we do.
Yeah, and now, they haven't gone off for sale, I haven't looked at them lately, they haven't been downgraded.
Mhm.
But when you look at this, at the assessed valuation, what they got,
Right.
especially the commercial stuff, is
Right.
amazing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know, they haven't sold a bond in a while, because when they didn't pass their last bond, they went through a levy to
Right.
get the money,